There is a place at the bottom of the earth where time itself seems to slow, where the air is so pure it almost hurts to breathe, and where the line between life and death is drawn only by the will to endure. This is Antarctica, a world of silence and storms, of blinding light and endless night, a continent that defies imagination. From orbit, it looks like a white crown upon the planet, a frozen shield that holds the memory of 1,000,000 winters. Yet beneath that stillness lies motion. Vast rivers of ice flowing toward the sea, mountains buried under kilometers of snow, and secrets locked away in darkness for eons. Few places test the limits of life so fiercely. Fewer still reveal the true scale of our planet's power. The journey begins with the wind. It never truly stops here. It howls across the plateau, sweeping snow into spirals that dance like ghosts across the horizon. The cold bites deep, so deep that steel fractures like glass, and skin exposed for seconds can freeze solid. At the heart of the continent lies the polar plateau, where temperatures plunge below -80 degrees Celsius. It is one of the coldest, driest, and loneliest places on Earth. Yet, even here, humanity has dared to stay. Scientists, explorers, and dreamers, drawn by the mystery of this vast white world. In the stillness of the polar night, the sky burns with light. Curtains of green and violet shimmer across the heavens. The aurora australis, the southern lights, created when solar winds collide with Earth's magnetic field. They ripple and twist, painting the ice in ghostly colors. It is both beautiful and humbling, a reminder that even the sky itself is alive. Antarctica is more than ice. Beneath its frozen shell lie ancient mountains, the Gamburtsev Range, as tall as the Alps, hidden under 4 kilometers of ice. No human eyes have ever seen them directly. Radar images reveal their jagged peaks and deep valleys, relics of a time long before ice claimed the land. Buried lakes and secret rivers flow beneath, sealed away from sunlight for millions of years. Lake Vostok, the largest of these hidden waters, lies under 4 kilometers of ice and holds a world completely cut off from the surface. A possible glimpse of how life might exist on other frozen worlds, like Europa or Enceladus. For centuries, Antarctica was a myth, a blank spot on old maps marked Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. Sailors feared it, imagining monsters and endless storms. The first humans to reach its shores did so only 2 centuries ago, braving oceans thick with ice and winds that could tear sails to shreds. What they found was not a land of wealth or warmth, but an empty, frozen desert. Yet something about it called to them, that strange mix of terror and wonder that only true wilderness can inspire. To cross this continent is to walk through a paradox. There is almost no precipitation here. Some regions receive less moisture than the Sahara. It is technically a desert, the largest on Earth. But when storms come, they come with fury, whipping snow into blizzards that can bury entire camps. On the coast, sea ice stretches far into the horizon, cracking and shifting with the tides. Icebergs the size of cities drift away, breaking from the shelves with a sound like thunder. Each one carries a story of centuries frozen within it, compressed air from an age long gone, tiny bubbles whispering of climates past. Scientists study them, drilling deep into the ice to retrieve these frozen time capsules, searching for answers about our planet's history. Within their layers are records of ancient atmospheres, volcanic eruptions, even cosmic dust. To hold a piece of ice 1,000,000 years old is to hold a fragment of time itself. and still, life endures. Along the coasts in the brief and brilliant Antarctic summer, the world awakens. The sun circles the horizon, never setting, bathing the landscape in an endless golden glow. Penguins march in vast colonies, emperors, adelies, chinstraps, filling the air with a chorus of calls. They waddle awkwardly on land, but glide like dancers beneath the sea. There, in the icy waters, they are masters of speed and grace, diving hundreds of meters in search of krill and fish. Seals lounge on the ice, their sleek bodies glistening, their eyes dark and curious. Weddell seals sing beneath the ice in haunting metallic tones that echo through the frozen ocean. And above, the skies fill with wings, skuas, petrels, and the great wandering albatross, whose wings can span 3 meters, gliding for days without rest. It's easy to think of Antarctica as empty, but in truth, it is full of life, just not in the way we expect. Beneath the sea ice, entire ecosystems thrive, illuminated by a faint blue glow. Algae bloom on the underside of the ice, feeding clouds of plankton, which in turn feed krill, fish, seals, whales, and birds. It is a delicate chain, balanced on the edge of freezing point, where a single degree of warmth or cold can change everything. The Southern Ocean, swirling endlessly around the continent, is one of the most productive on Earth. It drives currents that regulate the planet's climate, redistributing heat and nutrients across the globe. Without Antarctica, the balance of life itself would falter. And yet, it is also a land of solitude. Deep inland, far from the ocean's touch, nothing moves. No birds, no plants, no sound but the wind. The ice stretches to infinity, broken only by the shadow of distant mountains. Here, humans have built outposts, isolated research stations that stand like small islands of light in an ocean of darkness. Scientists live and work here through the long winter, months without sunrise, temperatures colder than any freezer on Earth. They study everything: the ozone layer above, the bacteria beneath, the shifting patterns of ice, and the subtle rhythms of the planet. Their work is slow, difficult, and often dangerous. Yet they persist, because every discovery here expands our understanding of the world. Sometimes, when the wind dies and the sky clears, there is a stillness so deep it feels sacred. The light turns silver, the air sharp as crystal. You can see for hundreds of kilometers, but there is nothing. Only ice, shadow, and the endless curve of the horizon. It is in moments like these that Antarctica reveals its true nature, not as a wasteland, but as a sanctuary of silence, a place where the noise of the modern world cannot reach, and where, for a moment, you can feel the planet breathe. They came to this frozen land driven by curiosity, ambition, and a hunger for the unknown. At the dawn of the 20th century, Antarctica became the stage for one of humanity's greatest epics, the race to the South Pole. Men from opposite ends of the Earth set sail into the void, chasing glory across a continent of ice that had never known a human footprint. In 1910, 2 expeditions departed for the bottom of the world. One led by the Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, the other by the British naval officer Robert Falcon Scott. Both knew the risks. Both understood that a single mistake could mean death. Yet both pressed forward, driven by the belief that to reach the pole was to touch the edge of human endurance. Amundsen's team moved swiftly, with precision and cold discipline. They used sled dogs, honed their methods in the Arctic, and built depots of food and fuel across the route. Scott's team, brave but burdened by heavier equipment and national pride, relied on ponies, motor sleds, and man-hauling their own loads. The journey was brutal. Blizzards tore at their tents, frostbite claimed fingers and toes, and exhaustion became their constant companion. On December 14, 1911, Amundsen and his men reached the South Pole. They planted the Norwegian flag in the heart of the White Desert, knowing they had conquered one of the last true frontiers. When Scott arrived a month later, his heart sank at the sight of Amundsen's flag fluttering in the icy wind. He and his companions turned back, defeated, but determined to make it home. They never did. On the return journey, battered by storms and starvation, the last of them perished in their tent, just 18 kilometers from a supply depot. When rescuers found their frozen bodies months later, Scott's diary lay beside him. His final words read, "For God's sake, look after our people." It was not a story of failure, but of courage, of humanity meeting nature's indifference and facing it with dignity. Since that time, countless others have followed in their footsteps, scientists, adventurers, and dreamers, each learning that Antarctica demands respect, not conquest. Those who come here quickly realize that survival depends not on strength alone, but on humility. The ice doesn't care about ambition. It doesn't care about pride. It simply is, vast, ancient, and unmoved. As decades passed, the world changed, but Antarctica remained the same. In the mid-20th century, during the height of the Cold War, a rare thing happened. Rival nations set aside their differences and agreed that this continent would belong to no one, and to everyone. In 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. It declared Antarctica a place of peace, science, and cooperation. No weapons, no war, no ownership, only research, exploration, and preservation. It was, and remains, one of humanity's finest acts of unity. Today, people from all over the globe work together here. Americans, Russians, Chinese, Norwegians, Chileans, Australians, and more. At stations like McMurdo, Vostok, and Concordia, they live side by side in one of the harshest environments on Earth. They study glaciers, atmospheric chemistry, astronomy, and the fragile ecosystems of the Southern Ocean. Every discovery they make adds a piece to the puzzle of how our planet works and how it's changing. The greatest change, of course, is the warming world. Even here, at the end of the Earth, the effects of climate change are visible. Ice shelves that have stood for thousands of years are cracking and collapsing into the sea. The Larsen B shelf, once the size of Luxembourg, disintegrated in just weeks. Glaciers are retreating faster than ever recorded. Beneath the surface, warm ocean currents gnaw at the ice from below, loosening its grip on the land. Scientists warn that if Antarctica's great ice sheets were to melt completely, global sea levels could rise by more than 60 meters, enough to redraw every coastline on Earth. And yet, it is not a story of despair. It is a warning and a call to action. Antarctica is not just a remote wilderness. It is the pulse of the planet. Its frozen heart beats in rhythm with our own. The winds that swirl around it shape the weather of continents far away. The water that melts from its glaciers flows through the veins of the world's oceans, changing currents and temperatures. What happens here will shape the future of us all. But Antarctica also teaches resilience. Life has always found a way here, even in the most hostile conditions imaginable. Take the emperor penguin. the only species to breed during the long, dark winter. When the sun disappears for months and the cold becomes unbearable, they gather in immense colonies, huddling together to survive. Each penguin takes turns standing on the outside of the circle, shielding the others from the wind before moving back into the warmth. It is a perfect dance of cooperation, a living lesson in endurance and unity. When the first rays of sunlight return, the chicks hatch, and a new generation begins its life on the ice. Under the sea, in waters so cold they should be lethal, creatures of astonishing beauty thrive. Icefish with clear blood that carries oxygen without hemoglobin, colossal squids with eyes the size of dinner plates, and transparent amphipods that drift like living glass. Even bacteria survive here, feeding on minerals in the dark waters beneath the glaciers. Life in Antarctica is not just surviving, it is thriving in ways we are only beginning to understand. Above this frozen world, astronomers use the clear, dry air to look deeper into space than almost anywhere else on Earth. Telescopes at the South Pole peer back billions of years, studying the faint afterglow of the Big Bang. The same ice that hides mountains and lakes below also serves as a detector for neutrinos, invisible particles from distant galaxies that pass through the planet by the trillions every second. In a way, Antarctica has become both a window to the past and a lens on the universe itself. At night, when the wind settles and the sky turns to crystal, those who live here step outside and look up. Above them stretches the Milky Way, sharp, endless, unpolluted by light or noise. The silence is absolute. You can hear your own heartbeat. In that silence, people say they feel something they can't explain. A connection, not just to this land, but to the whole Earth. They realize that all the noise of civilization, all our worries and ambitions, fade to nothing against the scale of this place. Antarctica strips life to its essence: cold, wind, endurance, and light. And yet, this is not a land without danger. The ice can crack open without warning, swallowing machines or men. Whiteouts can erase the horizon, turning up and down into the same colorless void. Even the strongest can lose their way. But for those who survive, for those who endure, the experience is transformative. They return home forever changed, quieter, humbler, aware of both the planet's fragility and its strength. The first explorers came for glory. The scientists who followed came for knowledge. But those who come today often come for something deeper, to understand what it means to coexist with a world larger than ourselves. Antarctica does not yield easily. It demands patience, respect, and surrender. In its silence, it asks the same question over and over. How do we live on this planet without breaking it? There are moments, standing upon this ice, when you feel the planet breathing. You hear the low groan of a glacier shifting, the distant thunder of an iceberg calving into the sea, and you realize that even in stillness, this land is alive. Antarctica moves, not quickly, not in ways we can always see, but endlessly. The ice flows outward like a slow tide, feeding the oceans, sculpting mountains, writing the story of time in frozen motion. The people who call this place home, if only for a season, learn to live by its rhythm. In summer, the sun never sets, and the air hums with activity. Supply ships arrive, research stations buzz, helicopters ferry scientists to the ice shelves and mountains beyond. There is laughter, work, discovery, a fragile echo of humanity's persistence at the edge of existence. But as the weeks pass, the light fades. The sun dips lower each day, until one morning it doesn't rise at all. The long night begins. For months, darkness consumes the land. Temperatures plummet. The horizon disappears into blackness and wind. The world shrinks to the glow of a headlamp, the hum of machinery, the beating of your own heart. In that darkness, something changes in those who stay. They begin to feel the vastness of it, the sheer, humbling scale of a planet that can exist so completely without us. The isolation strips away everything unnecessary. You come face to face with your own smallness, and strangely, that brings peace. Out here, there are no cities, no politics, no distractions, only the Earth as it has been for millions of years, patient and immense. It is in this isolation that new connections form. The people stationed here from every corner of the world learn to depend on one another in ways rarely seen elsewhere. Nationalities blur. The flag on your sleeve matters less than the warmth of shared coffee in the cold, the steady voice on the radio, the hand that steadies you in the storm. In a place where survival depends on cooperation, humanity shows its best self. The Antarctic Treaty, signed decades ago, lives here not as an idea, but as a reality. Proof that peace and science can endure even in the harshest conditions. Beyond the research stations, the wilderness remains untamed. Vast fields of broken sea ice stretch to the horizon. Icebergs, sculpted by wind and water, rise like cathedrals of glass. Some glow a deep, ancient blue, their color born from centuries of compression. Beneath them, the water teems with life, krill swarming by the billions, their tiny bodies shimmering like dust in sunlight. Whales move through these waters with slow, graceful power. Humpbacks feeding on krill clouds, orcas slicing through the cold like living torpedoes. Every breath they take sends a plume of steam into the frozen air, a heartbeat of life in a landscape of ice. It is easy to forget amid such beauty that this balance is fragile. The ice shelves that hold the continent together are weakening. Warm ocean currents, pushed south by shifting winds, are melting them from below. The great glaciers, Thwaites, Pine Island, Denman, are sliding faster toward the sea. Scientists call Thwaites the Doomsday Glacier because if it collapses, it could trigger a chain reaction across West Antarctica, raising sea levels and displacing millions of people. But for now, it still holds, groaning, cracking, clinging to the land. Every year, researchers return to measure its retreat, hoping to understand, perhaps to delay, the inevitable. And yet, amid the warning signs, there is still hope. Antarctica reminds us of what is still pure and worth protecting. It shows that nature can endure unimaginable extremes, and that balance, once lost, can sometimes be restored, if we act with respect, not domination. Around the world, efforts are growing to preserve the Southern Ocean, to reduce emissions, to protect the krill fisheries that sustain life here. Change comes slowly, but it begins with awareness, and awareness begins with wonder. As the Antarctic summer returns, the ice cracks open, the sea breathes again, and the circle of life resumes. Penguins gather on the shorelines, their chicks grown strong through the winter. Whales return from their migrations, feeding in the nutrient-rich waters. The air fills with the sounds of life, cries, calls, the splash of waves against ice. The continent, which had slept in shadow, wakes once more. Those who come here often speak of a feeling they can't quite describe. Something beyond beauty, beyond fear. Standing on the ice beneath a sky of endless light, they feel connected to something ancient and eternal. It's as if Antarctica holds a mirror up to the human spirit, showing both our fragility and our strength. It strips away illusion and leaves only truth, that we are guests on this planet, not its masters. Long after we are gone, the ice will remain. It will shift and melt and freeze again. Mountains will rise, oceans will change, and the wind will still whisper across the plateau. But the memory of those who walked here, who studied and cared and marveled, will linger in the story of the Earth itself. And so, as our journey across this white world comes to an end, we return not with conquest or possession, but with reverence. Antarctica doesn't give itself easily. It teaches through silence, humbles through hardship, and rewards through awe. It is both a beginning and an end, the first place of the world and its final frontier. When you stand here, on the edge of the world, and look across the horizon of ice, you understand that this planet is alive. You feel its pulse in the creak of the glaciers, in the crash of waves beneath the cliffs, in the wind that never stops blowing. And you realize something profound, that protecting this place is not just about saving Antarctica. It's about saving ourselves, because everything is connected: the ice, the ocean, the air, and us. When the ice melts, the seas rise. When the seas warm, the world changes. And when the world changes, so do we. Antarctica is not just a land of cold and distance. It is the beating heart of the Earth, the keeper of its memory, and perhaps the key to its future. So let us listen to the ice. Let us learn from its silence. Let us remember that somewhere at the bottom of the world, there is still a place untouched, unspoiled, and sacred. A place that reminds us who we are and what we must protect. For in the end, Antarctica does not belong to any one nation or any one generation. It belongs to time itself, to the endless story of the Earth, written in ice and wind and light. And as the final light of the polar summer glows over the horizon, the wind carries a simple truth. The world is vast, fragile, and beautiful beyond measure. To know Antarctica is to know our planet. To protect it is to protect ourselves.